Hello, I'm Chris Solo, and welcome to the Fabled 42, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. You are watching Quests and Answers, where we take the quest to find your answers. Today, we're talking about feats within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A very special guest today with me is Rene. Rene, where can everybody find you?
Hi, I'm Rene Beauregard. I am one half of Dragon Rock RPG Design. You can find us at Dragon Rock RPG Design on Instagram and Dragon Rock RPG on Twitter, as well as Facebook. If you have any requests for homebrew content, be it race, class, items, feats, you name it, we will design it with you and for you. You can hit us up also at Dragon Rock rpgdesign at gmail.com for inquiries and commissions. And rock is spelt like the bird, R-O-C.
Thank you very much, sir. Very excited to have you here. Very excited to talk about feats. We've been doing a lot of segments on classes and things, and we've talked about feats in all the different classes, but feats is just such a big beast on its own. I just want to dive into it. So,
Yeah.
there's so many to choose from. What are, in your opinion, what are some of the best feats for any class?
Best feats for any class. Now, like we can start right up at the top and do this like in alphabetical order, and it would work just fine.
Sure.
Alert, right off the top. Alert is
Yep.
like one of the best feats that you can take for any class whatsoever, especially if you've got a character who's built to be sort of this, scouting, very perceptive, like aware of their surroundings kind of person. It allows you to not be taken advantage of when you're sleeping or unconscious. You can't be surprised. It also gives you like a really big boost to your initiative, so that like when things do kick off, like that +5 to your initiative gives you a really big edge on somebody else
Absolutely.
who like even if you roll low, you might end up midway
Yeah.
into the initiative order. So getting that jump on something is really an important situation to have, and an alert is probably one of the best feats to take in that regard. The other one that I would recommend for any class is tough. Okay, right from the jump,
Yep.
what you're getting when you take tough, depending on what level you take it at, you're getting double your level in HP.
Mhm.
So let's say you take it at level 16. So you're getting 32 hit points right off the top to add to your immediate like HP bonus. And then after that, every level thereafter, you're getting 2 additional HP on top of whatever you're getting. So even if you take average, so for someone with a D8 hit die, you're getting an average of at least 6, plus whatever your con mod is. That 6 becomes an 8, and then that stacks, and it
Oh yeah.
has that can go for miles. You put tough on a barbarian, and you're just damage soak at that point. Like it
Diablo.
has yeah, exactly, right. And so that you're just
Yeah.
harder to take down,
Yeah.
like the longer you go.
Yeah. Which was funny when we were doing the 12-hour stream and Taryn dropped the monster drop because it was gonna be
Right.
Viago anyway, and he ended up being level 20 Viago, that was just silly.
Oh boy, that was fun. I'll tell
Um,
you, it was hard, but it was worth the fight.
yeah. Yes, it was a fun. It was just a fun mechanic just to kind of play in. But going with tough and with alert. So like, we're thinking about the perspectives of alert. Like if you're a rogue, if you don't take alert, you're a bad rogue. Like just out the gate, you have to take alert. Like you have
Yeah.
to, because
Yeah, well, I
especially
mean,
if
I
you
would
have
argue that
assassinate, like you want to be the
yeah,
first person to do something.
I would argue that the other side of that is alert or mobile.
Yeah.
The ability to move and not take, like, as long as you make an attack, no one can take an attack of opportunity at you,
Yeah.
even if you purposefully like miss. You have mobile. You could make an attack that you actually like. You're fainting is essentially what that would
Yeah.
be, and then you have the ability to move your speed without having somebody make an attack of opportunity on you. It's perfect. Like
Yeah, no, no,
it's
it's
beautiful
it's a
for
great
rogues.
combination. But then if you think about the other side of the coin, if someone was like a cleric or someone who just doesn't take any dex, right? Maybe
Right.
dex is their dumb stat. No one should ever make dex their dumb stat first off, but some people do, or some people
Mhm.
make it their 10, right? So it's just a plus
Right.
0. You take alert, you have a +5. So
That's
like
it. Yeah.
you don't suck as much for initiative, which is helpful, right? So like
Right.
it's just a good thing to take for any any situation.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with tough because I mean I took it with my barbarians and that's why he had I don't even know, too many hit points. Like he had a lot of hit points.
Yeah.
Which is
Almost
funny
400.
because was that
Almost 400.
you know what? Remember, it was over 400 when I took 20 in Barbarian, but when I dialed back 3 to Fighter, it dialed it back. But here's the funny thing: is especially with Barbarians, if you are a Totem Bear and you half everything but Psychic, that 40 extra hit points turns into 80. That's 80 extra hit points, ladies and gentlemen. Like
it's ridiculous. It is. It just goes. It goes beyond comprehension, and it's just like, for a dungeon, like for me as like the referee for Mythical Melee, like I have no stakes in this, right? Like I have nothing that I need to worry about. It's just pitting players against each other. Whereas a DM would look at that and be like, okay, my monsters are going to be boosted now at this point because they have to be, right? Or you take something that, clicks out your rage, that like there's got to be a way to like circumnavigate it or at least prepare for it. But 100%.
It's a fun perspective when you think about it, because then when you look at the bare bone basics of monsters in 5th edition, and I understand why they're all balanced the way they are, I think a lot of them are nerfed way too much, and we're actually going to talk about this in a couple of weeks for the full question and answers show. But if you go and fight an ancient dragon, even with layer actions and all that, it has 300. No, it has about 280, I think, hit points or something
like that. Yeah.
So wait, so I have to be like, it's built for level 17 party to fight an ancient dragon or whatever. So you have 4 people. If you go basic, campaign parties, 4 people. But then your barbarian has more hit points than the dragon, and it takes half. Like it just my brain doesn't make sense. But also when you look at like what an ancient dragon, its size is.
Yeah.
Oh, my kid took it.
Which is
versus the
gigantic.
big dragon I did on Wednesday. Like that's how big a dragon should be, guys.
Yes.
It shouldn't be this little thing. Like so. Anyway, but tough is a good feat.
I agree.
So now, kind of diving a little deeper. I'm trying not to go on too many tangents. Diving a little bit deeper on feats specific for classes. So there's a lot of classes. There's not that much time, but we can pick a few classes that like these are the must-haves, right? If you're a ranger or a ranged fighter or a ranged rogue, sharpshooter probably is the one you want to go with, right?
As per Mythical Melee, again, you look at what Bridget did with Prizrak, her Kenku rogue. It was phenomenal to watch her do what she was doing with that rogue with sharpshooter. Having the ability to add that on top of things was incredibly crucial for her. So what I will say is that let's just look, instead of just a specific class, what I can say is martial classes. For this one specifically, I'm gonna talk about dual wielder. Because if you're a fighter, a paladin, a ranger, anything that can wield a martial weapon and can take the 2-weapon fighting style specifically, dual wielder is like an incredibly important feat to take, mostly because that bumps your weapon and damage span. Like you can, instead of just wielding 2 short swords or a short sword and a dagger or something like that, you can just take 2 weapons that have the single-handed property, and then you can use them in both hands. That way, like I could pick up 2 long swords and do a D8 damage with each. Like that's incredibly insane. Spellcasters, take Warcaster. Stop putzing around and take Warcaster, because there's going to be a concentration spell that you're going to want to cast, and you should probably maintain concentration on it. Also, the ability to use a spell that has an action as a as its the casting time as an attack of opportunity. Think about it like this: if I'm a wizard who has Witch Bolt for whatever reason, and somebody gets out of within 5 feet of me, I can then cast Witch Bolt as a reaction. Yes, it does use a spell slot, but at the same time, now I have a concentration spell that I hold on somebody that I can continue to do. It doesn't say that it has to be damaging. All it says is that it requires 1 action. So that those are my 2 for like just the spell casting and martial classes. But if I want to go into like a specific class, let's look at Warlock.
Yeah.
I am such a sucker for the narrative flair of what a warlock is and what the warlocks have a capability to do. I have so many that are sitting in my back pocket that like Dragon Rock has designed that I really think are interesting and cool. The best thing that has come out recently with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is the feat Meta Magic Adept, because what you can do then is you can take your warlock who has like a very few spell slots to do everything with. Then you can take the meta magic from a sorcerer and slam that into it, and what you can do is you can take the meta magic options that have been introduced, aka there's a new one about like the elemental spell casting, where you can take like, let's say I'm casting like Acid Splash. I can spend a sorcery point to switch the acid to poison, lightning, thunder, fire, and that's one of the new meta magic options in Tasha's. But I could also like let's look at the Celestial Warlock, who has all that healing, right? You take Distant Spell, your Cure Wounds is now reaching 30 feet instead of having to touch somebody.
That's huge. Yeah.
And so adding just a little bit of like the sorcerer flair into a warlock has so much potential.
I haven't read this one, so that's ooh, that's nasty.
Yeah. And then the other one of wizards, take Keen Mind. You always know what direction you're going. You always know what time it is. You can recall information from 30 days ago. Those are really good. Like, it's a really great wizard feat to have, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
What about some I haven't looked at Tasha's enough. Like, I'm sitting here looking, I'm like, oh, Poisoneer, Piercer, what's this? Like, there's just so many different things.
So one of the great things about Tasha's was the damage type focused feats. So you've got Poisoner is one of them, but the three that really stood out when they came out with this in the Unearthed Arcana, I tell my home game, I'm like, if Unearthed Arcana comes out and there's something in there that you want to try, let's just port it in, play with it, and see how it goes. Because 9 times out of 10, even though a lot of people talk about how Unearthed Arcana is kind of unbalanced and is not really great, I don't agree. I think that a lot of DMs have like a framework that they work within, and they have a hard time breaking out of that. But what Crusher, Slasher, and Piercer did was it just took the ability to do that damage and like upped it. For example, you get a boost in strength or constitution from Crusher, and then once per turn, when you hit something with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet. So you're like, let's say I have like, for example, in my home game, I have a paladin who wields a maul. He deals bludgeoning damage to a creature, has the Crusher feat, and then can push it 5 feet away from him. If he's standing at the edge of a cliff and smacks something with a hammer, that's it. It's game over. Yep. And then you have additional you have an additional bonus when you deal critical when you deal a critical hit, where anything with Crusher specifically, that any attack on that creature for the next turn, like for the one whole round until the start of your next turn, has advantage, because essentially you've winded and or broken a bone in that character, and so now you've made them an easier target to hit. So I think that having those 3 feats alone as an option for players nowadays.
I'm reading through Piercer right now, because most of my guys always have piercing, and like that's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, because the biggest thing is like I'm a big stat guy.
Yeah.
Because it's always situational. It's always situational. All these, like, there's so many feats that are great, but then you're not taking any bumps. I'm like, man, I don't want to just sit at 18 decks. Like, I need 20. So you have to take the bump too. But however, if you take something like Piercer and you just deal with 19 for 4 levels, and you take something else that gives you another dex bump, then you're at 20 and you have 2 feats. So like, that's awesome. I was just
It's a
looking at
great
Gunner
feat.
too. Gunner looks
Oh, Gunner.
ridiculous.
Yeah, if you're a DM who plays with the firearms section of the Dungeon Master's Guide, Gunner is a really great thing to give to your players or to allow your players access to, because it expands the reach of what the firearms has the ability to do. Specifically, there's that hippo race. I forget what their name is, but their whole backstory is that they're like space traveling sailors, and their whole thing is firearms.
Yeah.
So having this feat just like takes crossbow expert and applies it to firearms is really what it is.
Yeah.
And it just is very interesting to have that, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting too because we're getting close to time, but it's interesting too because like Eric, for example, who plays Carrick, who uses a crossbow, he always likes using guns, and guns are kind of a thing now in Realms.
Right.
And because he used guns, and he was a ranger that used guns in Tides, our pirate campaign, so he definitely wants to get back to that. So him being able to do this at next level and being able to play with some gun toys is kind of a fun. It's a fun mechanic.
A fun concept.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun concept. So we have about 3 minutes left. What are some sleeper feats that people just always ignore and they should? Like for me, Keen Mind is it doesn't give you a lot, but it gives you so much. Like if you're lost in a dungeon, if you as a player can't remember anything, but your DM knows, you'd be like, "Hey, I would know this." And you're like, "Damn it!" But but yeah, that kind of stuff.
Sleeper feats. Two that come to mind right off the top is resilient. Number one sleeper feat is resilient. It'll give you a boost to the stat that you want. Out of all 6 of them, you get your choice. And you can only take this feat once. It's not like Elemental Adept where you can like take it multiple times and gain resistance to damage types. But like what resilient does is it gives you proficiency in a saving throw of the ability that you choose. So like for what I did with Wizards of Ukador with Khalees was normally with like a wizard, because you get wisdom and intelligence, what you would take resilient for would be constitution, so that you have like your con saves are always boosted by your proficiency bonus. But what I did was I did it with Dex, because of the way that I built the character being the kind of pirate swashbuckler kind of style. I gave him advantage or proficiency in Dex saves, because I was like, I want him to have the ability to move and to save from like a fireball or a lightning bolt or something in a way that is a little bit above the people that he's surrounded by, so that like he can cut in and booming blade or shadow blade, because that like of the way that I've kind of built him up. And I think that's a really great sleeper one. The other one, I just had it. Observant. Observant, I feel is not often taken by players with characters who they believe aren't observant, but like it is a really great feat in that it boosts your passive score, right? It gives your passive scores the ability to like gain a +5 to passive insight or investigation and perception. And what you can do with that as the additional part is that if you can see someone talking at a distance and you know their language, you know what they're talking about.
That's amazing.
All you have to do is read lips, and that's the boost, right? And I think that can go so far with every campaign, regardless of what character you're playing. And I think it has a lot of merit for most players.
Absolutely. So with our last bits here, 30 seconds. What is your favorite feat and why?
My favorite feat and why. Okay. My favorite feat is Elven Accuracy, 100%. Elven Accuracy is essentially the only way that you can gain what's called triple advantage or double advantage. Because if you are an Elven character, whether you are Elven or half elf specifically, you can increase your Dex, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma
Wow.
That's 4 different abilities you're boosting instead of 2 or 3, up by 1 to a max of 20. And then when you have advantage on a check using either Dex, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma, you will then re-roll one of those dice.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself has the capacity to just go hog wild, and so you're always get overtaking yourself, and the chances of rolling a natural 20 from that point forward is just like out of this world.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So, thank you very much for joining us in this segment of Quests and Answers. We talked about Feats in Dungeons and Dragons 5th Edition. Renee, where can people find you?
So once again, Chris, thank you for having me on here. I love having conversations with you about God knows anything. People can find me at Dragon Rock RPG Design on Instagram or at Dragon Rock RPG on Facebook and Twitter. And DMs, consider when you start your campaigns at level 1, give them a free feat. It's not that overpowered. It's not that out of touch, and it makes your characters really interesting. So feats for free, at least 1. It's not a bad idea.
I like it. Well, this is Quests and Answers, where we went on a quest to find the answers for you all. I am DM Chris Solo. You can find me at DM Chris Solo on all the social medias, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.